The girl and the crash site. The night was quiet in the mountains. Only the wind moved through the trees. Daniel Carter, a 25-year-old mechanic, sat outside his small cabin, fixing an old motorbike under a weak hanging bulb. He liked quiet nights like this. No noise, no people, just tools and metal. But tonight was different. Suddenly, the sky cracked open with a loud boom. Daniel looked up. A streak of fire cut across the stars. Something was falling from the sky. Fast. It wasn't a shooting star. It was too big, too real. It hit the forest just a mile away with a sound like thunder smashing the earth. Daniel stood frozen. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. He grabbed his flashlight, jumped on his dirt bike, and rode toward the crash. Branches slapped his face, and rocks hit his tires. But he didn't stop. Something inside him told him this was important. He reached the crash site. Trees were broken, and the ground was torn apart like something had clawed through it. In the middle of the mess was a ship. Not a plane. A ship, silver, smooth, glowing slightly even though it was broken. Smoke came from its side. It was shaped like a crescent moon and looked nothing like anything made on Earth. Daniel's heart raced. He stepped closer, shining his light on the ship's body. Strange symbols covered the metal. He touched it. It was warm. Suddenly, he heard a soft sound. A cough. He pointed his flashlight toward the sound and gasped. There, half inside the ship, was a girl. But she wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue. Her hair, silver like moonlight. She had long fingers and glowing marks running up her arms. Her eyes were closed, but her chest rose and fell slowly. She was alive. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her. "Hey, are you okay?" he said, unsure if she could understand. The girl opened her eyes, bright violet, glowing softly in the dark. She looked scared. She opened her mouth and whispered one word, "Solace." Then she passed out. Daniel stared at her. He didn't know what solace meant, but he knew one thing. He couldn't leave her here. He looked at the burning ship, then back at her. "No one's going to help you," he said. "Except me." He picked her up carefully. She was light, almost too light, like her bones were hollow. He carried her to his bike, put her gently in a crate on the back, and drove home as fast as he could. Back in his cabin, Daniel made a bed for her in the shed behind his house. He covered her in a blanket and cleaned her cuts with warm water. She didn't wake up again, but sometimes her lips moved in her sleep. Solace, solace. Hours passed. Daniel sat outside the shed, staring at the stars. What had he just done? He had an alien in his shed. Was the government already looking for her? Would they come for him too? Suddenly, he heard a buzzing noise. A black drone flew low over the trees. It stopped above the crash site, scanning with red lights. Daniel turned off all the lights in his house. He didn't move. He watched the drone float silently, then fly away into the night sky. He felt cold. They were looking for her, and they were close. In the shed, the girl opened her eyes. She stared at the roof above her, breathing slowly. Then her hand reached out and touched the wooden floor. A soft glow came from her fingers. In her mind, a memory played. She was young, running through a city of stars. People were screaming. Buildings were burning. And in the middle of it, a human, a boy with kind eyes, stood between her and a giant metal beast. He had saved her, and now he was here again. She didn't know why or how, but she had found him. She whispered again, even softer this time. "Solace." Outside, Daniel was still thinking. Something told him that Crash wasn't random. That girl, she came here for a reason. And whatever it was, it had just begun. The bond they couldn't understand. The sun rose slowly over the mountains, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. But inside Daniel's shed, it still felt like night. The air was thick with silence. Heavy, strange, almost sacred. The girl hadn't moved much. Daniel sat by the door, his back against the wooden wall, watching her. A blanket covered her small body. Her silver hair spread over the old mattress like a river of light. Her breathing was steady now, calm. He hadn't slept. He didn't know if he was scared, amazed, or just confused. Probably all of them. An alien, a real alien, in his shed. And she was just a girl. He looked down at his hands. They were still shaking from last night. She had said something. Solace. He kept hearing it in his head, like it meant something important. But she hadn't said anything else since. By noon, she opened her eyes again. Violet. Glowing. Beautiful, but strange. She looked at Daniel with fear, but not panic, like she was trying to remember something. He raised his hand slowly. It's okay. You're safe. She blinked, breathing fast. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for danger. He pointed to himself. Daniel. My name is Daniel. She didn't answer. Then he pointed to her. You? What's your name? The girl hesitated, then placed her hand over her heart and spoke softly. Lyra. Her voice was light, soft like wind in the trees. Daniel smiled. Lyra, he repeated. She nodded once. That was the beginning. Over the next 2 days, Daniel brought her food, water, and clean clothes. She didn't eat much, only fruits. She didn't speak often, but every time she did, he listened carefully. He found a way to teach her basic words using pictures and objects. She was fast, very fast. She learned quicker than any human child could. She spoke in broken English, with pauses and short words, but her eyes always said more than her voice. There was sadness in them, deep sadness. Sometimes, Daniel caught her staring at the stars through a crack in the shed wall, her lips moving silently, like she was praying. On the third night, rain started to fall. Daniel stood outside under a plastic sheet, fixing the shed's leaking roof. Suddenly, he heard a small voice behind him. You saved me. He turned around. Lyra was standing barefoot in the doorway, eyes wide, hair wet from dripping water. He was surprised. You remember? She nodded slowly. I remember face. Your face. Daniel's heart skipped. You saw me before. She looked away. Long ago. In fire. You helped me. That didn't make sense. Daniel had never seen her before. But her voice didn't lie. He walked toward her. Lyra, I've never left Earth. She tilted her head. Not in this life. Daniel stared at her. She continued. You were there. In my world. You stopped the fire beast. I was small. You told me run. Daniel's mind spun. No, that can't be. She stepped closer, reaching out. You are same. Then, for the first time, she touched his hand. And everything changed. Images flashed in Daniel's mind. Bright, fast, loud. Flames, screams. A city in the sky, a girl running. A massive creature of metal and fire. And himself, wearing armor, holding a strange weapon, standing between the girl and the beast. He had yelled something. Run. Then, darkness. Daniel gasped and pulled back. His heart pounded like a drum. His legs felt weak. What did you just do? He whispered. Lyra looked down. I showed. Memory. You were there. Not dream. Not lie. Daniel sat on the ground, shaking. Was it possible? Could he have lived another life? On another world? Or was something bigger happening? Later that night, Daniel sat with Lyra in the cabin, trying to understand. She told him pieces of her story. She was a seeker from a distant planet called Elura. Her people had been hunted by a galactic empire for centuries. She was born during war. Her father was a warrior. Her mother was a healer. They died when she was young. But one day, during a great battle, a strange man had come from the sky. human, not Illyrian, and saved her. He had your eyes, she said. Your voice. Daniel listened silently, his mind filled with questions. Could humans travel through time? Through dimensions? Had he been pulled into her world and then returned without memory? Was Earth just a small part of something much, much bigger? They sat in silence for a long time. Then Lyra said, I came, looking for you. Daniel turned toward her. You came all the way across the stars. She nodded. I had dream of you. You were sad, alone. I wanted to say thank you for saving me. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had lived alone for years, fixing machines, avoiding people, believing life had no bigger meaning. And yet here she was, a girl from another world, saying he had once saved her life. But before they could speak more, a sharp sound cut through the air. Beep, beep, beep. Daniel jumped up. It was coming from outside, the back fence. He grabbed a flashlight and ran out. Rain soaked his clothes instantly. There, hovering above the trees, was a black drone. Same as before. Only this time, it was closer. It scanned the shed with a red laser, then flew off fast into the sky. Daniel's heart dropped. They found us, he whispered. He turned to Lyra, who stood in the doorway again, shaking. What do we do now? He asked. Lyra didn't answer, but her eyes were glowing again. And this time, they were full of light and fire. The chase begins. The rain didn't stop all night. Daniel didn't sleep. He stayed by the window, eyes scanning the dark trees, listening to the wind, waiting for the sound of engines or footsteps or anything that meant danger was near. Lyra sat on the floor beside the fire, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the flames. She hadn't said much since the drone. Daniel finally turned to her. We can't stay here. Lyra nodded once. They know. Who are they, Lyra? She looked up slowly. Her glowing violet eyes met his. The hunters. She explained in broken words. Long ago, the Illyrians, her people, were a peaceful race. But when they discovered a special kind of energy deep inside stars, a powerful empire known as the Zurel Syndicate began to attack them. This energy, called Solus, could power ships, heal wounds, even open rifts between galaxies. It was rare, and Lyra's people could touch it, control it. That made them targets. The hunters were part of the syndicate. Cold, fast, heartless. Machines with skin. They didn't ask questions. They just found and captured. And now, they have followed her to Earth. Daniel packed fast. He threw food, tools, and fuel into his old van. It was a beat-up metal box on wheels, but it still ran, thanks to his repairs. Lyra walked quietly beside him, carrying only a small glowing crystal in her hand. As they pulled away from the cabin, Daniel looked back one last time. He had lived there for years, alone, safe, silent. Now it was just smoke and memories. The mountain roads were slippery, winding like snakes through the mist. Daniel drove fast, eyes sharp, heart pounding. Lyra sat beside him, silent. But suddenly, she reached out and placed her hand on the dashboard. A soft blue light spread from her fingers. The engine stopped rattling. The fuel gauge rose. Even the radio flickered on, though Daniel hadn't touched it in years. He looked at her, surprised. What did you just do? Lyra gave a small smile. Soulless energy. I shared. A little. Daniel blinked. You just fixed my van with alien magic. She giggled softly. Not magic. Just light. For a moment, Daniel forgot the danger. Then headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A black SUV. Moving fast. No license plate. No sound. Daniel's breath caught. They found us. He pushed the gas pedal. The van groaned, then sped forward. But the SUV stayed close. Too close. Another one appeared ahead on the road. Trapped. Lyra's hands began to glow again. Turn left, she said calmly. There's no road, Daniel shouted. Turn. He didn't know why he listened, but he did. He yanked the wheel. The van bounced off the main road and crashed through thick trees. Branches slapped the windshield. Mud sprayed everywhere. Still, the van moved, almost like it wanted to run. Lyra's power was flowing through it. The SUVs didn't follow. They stopped at the edge of the forest. Daniel drove until they reached an old tunnel, abandoned, half buried in rock. They hid inside. Darkness swallowed them. Only the hum of the engine and the beat of Daniel's heart remained. He finally stopped the van and turned off the lights. They sat in silence. I'm sorry, Lyra whispered. I brought danger. Daniel shook his head. You didn't bring it. You ran from it. He looked at her. Why Earth? Lyra stared at the tunnel wall. Because I saw you. In your dreams. She nodded. You saved me once. I felt your light again. I followed it. Daniel rubbed his face, confused. I don't remember any of that. I've never been to space. Lyra leaned closer. You have. But your mind is closed. Solace hides truth until ready. She touched his forehead. Suddenly, his eyes widened. A flood of memory rushed through him. He was standing on a floating platform. Stars above, fire below. Alien children cried. Soldiers shouted. A small girl hid behind a stone pillar, and he, Daniel, wore a glowing suit, a strange weapon in his hand. He ran forward, shouting. He fought something, tall, thin, with a silver face and burning red eyes. He picked up the girl, held her close. Don't be afraid, he said. I'm Daniel. And then, darkness. Daniel gasped, pulled back, and stared at Lyra. That was you. She nodded. You saved me. Long time ago. I never forgot. He swallowed hard. How? How did I get there? Soulless rift, she said. Sometimes brave souls fall through. You came, fought, then vanished. And now, I'm back. She nodded. I came across the stars, to find you, to warn you. They will destroy Earth too, just to get me. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we won't let them. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves danced across the ground. And in orbit above Earth, a silver ship shimmered into view. Inside, a hunter received a signal. Coordinates locked. Target, Lyra. Secondary target, the human who remembers. Mission, capture or eliminate. Back in the tunnel, Daniel and Lyra were unaware of the danger coming down from the sky. But they both felt something change. The air, the silence. The war had begun. The memory lock. The tunnel stayed quiet, but Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat against the van, staring at the floor, his mind full of images that didn't belong to Earth. Stars, battles, the silver face of a monster, and a small girl with glowing violet eyes calling his name as he held her close. He ran a hand through his hair, confused and shaken. Why do I remember things I never lived? Lyra sat nearby, her hands folded in her lap. Her crystal glowed faintly in the dark. Solace remembers for you, she said softly. But now it is time for you to remember. Daniel looked at her. How? Lyra stood and walked toward him. Her eyes shimmered. You were never just a human, Daniel. You were a wanderer, a soul that passed through stars. That doesn't make sense, Daniel whispered. I fix bikes. I live in a cabin. I'm just me. Lyra stepped closer. Not always. Once you saved entire worlds. He looked into her glowing eyes. Then show me. They stepped outside the tunnel. Night had fallen again. The sky was clear, stars bright above. Lyra placed her crystal on the ground. It lit up, casting a soft blue circle around them. She held her hand out. Daniel took it. "Close eyes," she said. "Open heart." As their hands touched, light wrapped around them. Daniel felt a pull, gentle, warm, like drifting into sleep. Then, suddenly, he wasn't in the tunnel anymore. He was standing in a golden city. Towers floated in the air. People with glowing skin moved silently around him. He wore armor made of dark metal, lined with shining blue veins. On his chest, a glowing mark, the symbol of Solis. He remembered this place. The city of Elira. He looked down at his hands. He was stronger, taller. His skin hummed with power. Beside him stood a small girl with silver hair, Lyra, but younger, crying. A monster roared in the distance. The Zerel had come. He turned, saw the metal beasts flying in the sky. Ships rained fire. Buildings exploded. And there, on a floating bridge, a red-eyed hunter stepped forward, pulling a sword of burning plasma. Daniel shouted, raised his weapon, and charged. The memory blurred. He fought with skill he didn't understand, slashing, blocking, moving like lightning. He remembered pain, anger, hope. He remembered holding Lyra close and whispering, "Run." Then a flash of white light. Everything went black. Daniel gasped and fell to his knees back in the tunnel. The memory ended, but it was real. He remembered now. He had been there. Lyra knelt beside him, placing a hand on his back. "You remember," she said gently. He nodded. "I do." She gave a small smile. "That is the memory lock, only opened when heart is ready." Daniel sat down, still shaken. "So, I was sent there." She shook her head. "You weren't sent. You fell through a soulless rift. A mistake, or maybe a miracle." He looked up. "And now they're coming here." She nodded. "Earth is in the path now. If they think I'm here, they will burn it." Daniel's face hardened. "Then we fight." They spent the next hours in silence, thinking, planning. Daniel searched the van and his bags for anything useful: tools, wires, batteries, spare parts. Lyra opened a small panel on the back of the crystal. Inside were small pieces of glowing metal, ancient tech from Elira. She handed one to him. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled. "You call it a battery. We call it life." He laughed once, surprised. It fits perfectly. Together, they built something strange. Daniel modified his tools, attaching alien cores, a wrench that pulsed with energy, a drone made from a fan, now able to hover silently. He was becoming more than just a mechanic. He was remembering who he truly was. But just before sunrise, the sky lit up in a flash of silver. Daniel rushed outside. Above the trees, a longship hovered, quiet, sleek, deadly. The Zerel had arrived. Lyra stood beside him, eyes glowing. "We have to go," Daniel said. She didn't move. "Lyra, they will not stop, not until I'm taken. Then we run." "We can't." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I felt it," she whispered. "They're not just here for me." She turned to him. "They know about you now." A loud hum filled the air. From the ship above, a beam of light fell on the tunnel entrance. Then, shadows moved in the trees. 6 hunters stepped out. Tall, cold, metallic, their red eyes scanning the ground. One of them pointed toward the van. Life forms detected. Daniel didn't wait. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "Get in." They jumped inside the van. Daniel hit the gas. The engine roared to life, charged by Solis power. The van shot out of the tunnel just as a hunter fired a beam behind them. The blast hit the ground, leaving a glowing crater. Trees flew past as Daniel raced down the hill. "They're faster than us," Lyra warned. "I know." Daniel reached under the seat, pulled out a metal tube, his newly built shock launcher, powered by alien energy. He aimed it behind and fired. The air cracked with blue lightning. One hunter flew back, its chest smoking. Lyra stared at him. He grinned. Like I said, I fix things. They drove for hours, changing paths, hiding under old bridges, through forests and empty gas stations. Daniel finally stopped when they reached a wide canyon. There was no bridge. He cursed. We're trapped. Behind them, engines roared again. Daniel looked at Lyra. Can your crystal do anything else? She closed her eyes, held the crystal up. It glowed bright, then shattered into dust, releasing a wave of blue energy. A glowing path of light formed across the canyon. Daniel stared in disbelief. That's a bridge. Lyra looked weak, but nodded. Hurry. He hit the gas again. The van drove across the glowing bridge, just as the hunters arrived behind them. The path vanished once they crossed. The hunters stopped. For now. On the other side, Daniel parked the van near a waterfall and stepped out. He looked up at the stars, breathing hard. Lyra leaned against the van, exhausted. You okay? He asked. She smiled faintly. Tired, but safe. Daniel looked at her for a long time. You came all this way to find me. Lyra nodded. And I'll protect you this time, just like before. They didn't know how long they had left, but they knew one thing now. They were not just running. They were preparing. The human weapon. The sun had not yet risen. The stars above were still bright, but the air around the canyon felt heavy, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Daniel sat on a rock, sharpening a blade. Not a normal blade. This one glowed faint blue. Its edge shimmered as if light itself had been frozen and shaped into a weapon. He didn't remember building it. But his hands had moved with purpose, as if some forgotten part of him had taken control. Lyra stood nearby, her silver hair flowing in the breeze, watching quietly. You're changing, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Maybe I'm just remembering. Inside the van, wires were pulled apart, tools scattered across the floor. The engine hummed low, filled with alien energy from the last of Lyra's solace crystal. Daniel had turned his broken-down van into something more, something alive. He added boosters to the sides, reinforced the wheels, mounted a solace-charged blaster under the hood. The van was no longer just a machine. It was his armor, his ship, his weapon. Lyra handed him a small device. This is the last memory stone, she said. It holds knowledge of my people. You can learn what they feared. Daniel stared at it. The device was the size of a coin. When he touched it, it melted into his palm like water. Images filled his head instantly. The Zurel Syndicate, the hunters, the fall of the city of Elyra. But more than that, he saw himself. A name whispered across the stars. Solari. That had been his title on Elyra, the Wanderer of Light, a being not born from their world, but called through a rift when hope was lost. The humans didn't know it, but one of them had already become a legend in another galaxy. And now, he was back. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. They will come again. They always come when we run. Daniel looked at her. Then we won't run. That night, the sky lit up once more. A ship descended, larger than before. Black, sharp, shaped like a spear. It landed in a dry valley 5 miles away. The ground shook under its weight. Inside the ship, hunters stepped forward. Dozens. Cold eyes. Silent feet. But this time, they didn't just scan. They prepared for war. Daniel drove the van through the hills, the engine quiet but strong. He wore a new suit now, metal parts combined with his old jacket. Light armor powered by Solus, connected to his heart through the glowing mark on his chest. The mark had returned after the memory lock. Lyra had drawn it with her hands, but the light came from him. She sat beside him in the van, holding a tablet made of crystal. The ship's core is in the center. If we take it, the ship shuts down. Daniel smirked. Simple enough. Lyra didn't smile. It's guarded by the Prime Hunter, the one who burned my world. Daniel's fingers tightened on the wheel. Then I'll remind him what a human can do. They reached the edge of the valley at dawn. The enemy ship stood tall, surrounded by metal towers and red searchlights. Daniel parked behind a ridge. He looked at Lyra. You stay here. No, she said quickly. We go together. He hesitated, then nodded. Stay close. He placed a small device in her hand. Press this if things go wrong. It'll light up the sky. She blinked. What does it do? He smiled. Call for backup. They moved fast through the rocks, Daniel's armor humming softly with each step. 2 hunters guarded the outer gate. Daniel raised his new blaster, a small handheld weapon powered by Solis. He fired once. A beam of blue light shot forward, hitting one hunter square in the chest. It dropped without a sound. The second turned, but Lyra raised her hand. A pulse of light burst from her palm, knocking the hunter back against the wall. Daniel grinned. Nice shot. She shrugged. You taught me. They entered the ship's lower hall. Cold metal walls. Red lights. Silence. Suddenly, an alarm screamed. A voice echoed in a harsh alien language. Then, footsteps. Lots of them. Daniel pushed Lyra into cover. Get to the core. I'll draw them away. No. He touched her cheek. I've done it before. I'll do it again. She grabbed his hand. Don't die again. He winked. No promises. Daniel ran through the hall, slamming doors, throwing noisemakers, drawing the hunters toward him. He stopped in a round chamber and waited. 7 hunters entered. He raised his weapon. Blue fire lit the room. He moved like he remembered. Faster than thought, sharper than steel. Each move powered by something ancient inside him. When the smoke cleared, the floor was covered in broken metal. And Daniel stood alone, breathing hard, eyes glowing faintly. Elsewhere, Lyra reached the core room. It was shaped like a heart, pulsing red light at its center. She approached the control panel and placed her hand on it. It responded to her energy. Just as she was about to shut it down, the air grew cold. A voice spoke behind her. You ran far, little spark. She turned slowly. The Prime Hunter stood there, twice her size, face smooth like glass, eyes burning. You stole something, it growled. The Solari. Lyra raised her chin. I didn't steal him. He found me. The hunter laughed, low and cold. He is broken. Just a man. Lyra's eyes glowed. Then why are you afraid of him? Daniel appeared in the doorway. His armor cracked with blue energy. His weapon was gone, burned out. But his fists glowed. The Prime Hunter turned. So, the Solari returns. Daniel said nothing. He walked forward, and the fight began. It was brutal. The hunter struck with raw strength. Daniel dodged, blocked, countered with glowing punches that cracked the metal floor. But he was bleeding. Tired. Human. The hunter grabbed him by the neck, lifted him off the ground. You are no god, it hissed. Daniel smiled through the pain. No, I'm worse. I'm human. And then Lyra threw the activation crystal into the core. Light exploded. The ship began to shake. The hunter screamed. Daniel dropped to the ground. Lyra ran to him. We have to go. They sprinted through the halls as alarms blared. The walls cracked. Fire burst from the ceilings. They reached the exit just as the ship collapsed behind them. The explosion shook the valley. Metal pieces rained from the sky. Daniel and Lyra lay on the ground, breathing hard, staring at the smoke cloud. They had done it. Together. Later, as they drove through the desert, Daniel looked at her. You okay? She nodded. He smiled. You were amazing back there. She looked at him. You too. He paused. Do you think they'll send more? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and touched his chest, right over the glowing mark, and said just 3 words. They already are. Across the stars, the earth looked small from up here. Blue, round, peaceful. But Daniel wasn't feeling peaceful. He stood at the window of a stolen freighter, staring down at the planet he had always called home. Now he was leaving it behind, not because he wanted to, because he had to. They had won the battle, but not the war. After destroying the Prime Hunter's ship, Daniel and Lyra thought they had bought some time. They were wrong. 2 nights later, Lyra was taken. A shadow moved through the trees near the canyon camp. No sound, no warning, just a flash of red light. And she was gone. All that remained was her crystal necklace, still glowing with warmth. Daniel tore the forest apart looking for her. But deep in his heart he knew. They had taken her off-world, back across the stars. He had no map, no ship, no allies. But he had purpose. And that was enough. He went to the crash site of Lyra's original ship. He hadn't touched it since the night he found her. But now, he stepped inside. The ship was damaged, half buried, but one small pod still hummed with life. Inside it was a nav stone, an Illyrian device that could open a rift gate if charged. Daniel didn't know how to use it, but his hands did. Soulless energy still lived in his blood. He touched the stone, and the stars bent. The freighter he now stood in wasn't meant for humans. Its ceilings were too high, its seats too wide. Its buttons didn't have words, only lights and shapes. Still, Daniel learned fast. He flew alone. Across systems, past moons and broken colonies. He chased a signal. Lyra's crystal had been encoded with a tracker. Faint, weak, but it pulsed. And Daniel followed it like a heartbeat. On the 3rd day, he reached a place called Graven Hollow, a mining station floating between asteroid belts. Old, ugly, rusted, dangerous. It wasn't on any map. But the signal led there. Daniel landed the freighter on a dusty dock. His armor flickered softly under his jacket. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he walked in. Everyone stared. Humans didn't come here. Not alone. Not alive. Inside the bar, he sat at the counter. The barkeep, a one-eyed insectoid creature, looked him over. "You lost, skin bag," it hissed. Daniel didn't answer. He placed Lyra's necklace on the table. "I'm looking for her." The barkeep hissed again. "Dead, probably. Jor-El don't keep pets." Daniel didn't blink. "Then I'll burn them all until I find her." Something in his voice made the room go quiet. Even the bounty hunters in the back stopped laughing. Daniel stood. "The girl's name is Lyra. She's not just anyone. She's royalty. She's power. And she's the only reason this galaxy still breathes." He looked around. "I'm not asking for help." He reached into his coat, pulled out the blaster. "I'm giving a warning." A small hand touched his arm. He turned. A child, no older than 10, with gray skin and glowing blue eyes. "I saw her," the child whispered. "They took her in chains. Toward the black ring." Daniel knelt. "What's the black ring?" The child shivered. "A prison. For those who shine too bright." Daniel left the station without another word. But something strange happened. As he climbed aboard the freighter, people followed. A group of alien miners, a tired soldier, a quiet old woman with steel arms. All of them had seen what he did. All of them had heard his voice, and something deep inside them believed. 2 days later, the freighter reached the edge of the black ring. It wasn't a place. It was a field of floating prisons, each spinning in darkness, hidden behind electromagnetic storms. Daniel couldn't enter alone. His ship would be torn apart. But then, one by one, other ships began to appear beside him. Old, damaged, rusted, but ready. The miners. the soldier, the woman with steel arms. They had come, not for Lyra, for him. Because something about this human was different. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for hope. He became it. Daniel gave no speech. He just pointed. There, Cell Cluster 9. And the fleet moved. The storm hit hard. Winds made of plasma. Asteroids spinning like knives. But the freighter held. Inside, Daniel prepared. His armor was stronger now, shaped from parts of enemy tech. His blade pulsed in his hand. And his heart, once quiet, now burned like a star. He flew through fire, dodged defense turrets, landed on the surface of the prison moon. Metal slammed under his feet as he walked into the gates. No one could stop him. He was the Solari, and his light had returned. The prison was dark, cold, full of screams. Cells lined the walls, most empty. Others held broken bodies, beaten spirits. But one voice rose above the rest. Soft, strong. Daniel. He ran toward it. Hunters blocked his path, 3 of them, tall and armored. He didn't slow. He threw a blaster, pulled his blade, fought like a storm made of skin and light. He moved like he had on Lyra, each strike fueled by memory and meaning. He reached the final door. Inside, Lyra knelt, hands chained, skin pale. She looked up, eyes wide. You came. Daniel dropped to his knees. Always. He broke the chains, held her close, and whispered, "Let's go home." As they escaped, the prison began to shake. The others had followed him inside, freeing prisoners, disabling systems. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a revolution. Hope had entered the Black Ring, and hope was catching fire. Back aboard the freighter, Daniel laid Lyra down gently. She was weak, but smiling. "You crossed the stars for me," she whispered. He nodded. "And I'll do it again." She touched his chest. The mark glowed. "You are more than human now." Daniel looked at the galaxy spinning outside the window. "No, I'm exactly what a human is." And now, the galaxy knew it too. She came back for him. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. No ships, no flashing lights, no alarms. Only stars blinking in silence. And in the middle of it all, a small ship floated, dark and still. Inside, Daniel lay on a cot, eyes closed, breathing slow. His body was bruised, his armor cracked, his hands still stained from battle. But he was alive. Beside him, Lyra sat in silence, her fingers gently brushing his arm. She had not left his side since the escape from the Black Ring. Not for food, not for sleep. He had crossed stars for her. Now she was here, waiting for him to wake. She remembered everything. The crash, the cabin, the boy with sad eyes who helped her when no one else would. She remembered his laugh, his kindness, his fight. But most of all, she remembered what he gave up. Daniel had used the last of his energy to power the escape ship. His soulless mark had gone dim. He had pushed beyond the limits of human strength, not because he wanted to be a hero, but because he refused to leave her behind. Finally, after 3 days of silence, his fingers twitched, his chest rose, and then his eyes opened. Violet light flickered faintly in them. Lyra gasped and hugged him tightly. "You're awake." Daniel coughed, groaned. "I feel like a crashed satellite." She laughed through tears. "You're alive. That's all that matters." He looked around slowly. "Where are we?" "Between systems. Safe." He nodded weakly. "Did we win?" She hesitated. "Not yet. But they're afraid now." He smirked. "Good." News of the Black Ring's fall spread fast. A human had done the impossible. He broke into the most feared prison in the stars and walked out with light in his hands. His name was whispered in dark corners. Some called him the last Solari. Others called him the star-blooded. But to most, he was something rarer, a symbol, proof that hope still had teeth, and that even one man, one broken human from a quiet planet, could burn through an empire. They traveled together for weeks, visiting free systems, warning those still hiding. Daniel trained with new allies, taught fighters how to combine solace with metal, how to think like a human warrior, reckless, clever, full of heart. And Lyra healed. Not just her wounds, her spirit. For the first time since she was a child, she believed the war could end. Not with an army, but with him. One night, they landed on a moon made of glass. It was quiet, peaceful. The stars reflected in every direction. Daniel sat with Lyra on a ledge, watching the sky. He held her hand. "You've been quiet," she said gently. He nodded. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "Earth. Home. What happens when this is over?" She looked down. "Will you go back?" He took a long breath. "I don't think I can." She turned toward him. "Why?" "Because the stars feel like home now." He looked into her eyes. "So do you." Time passed. More systems rose in rebellion. Colonies lit up with blue flames, soulless energy reborn. The Zurel Syndicate began to lose control. Slowly, yes, but clearly. Then one day, Lyra received a message. A fleet had been caught in a trap near her homeworld. Elira, the last stronghold of her people. If it fell, the light would go out again. They had one chance, one strike, one final stand. Daniel looked at her. "I'm coming with you." She grabbed his hand. "You might not return." He smiled. "That never stopped me before." The battle above Elira was the biggest the galaxy had seen in years. Flames lit up the skies. Solus-powered ships clashed with hunter vessels. Cries filled the stars. Explosions shook space. Daniel fought in the heart of it. His blade glowed bright. His armor shined like dawn. And beside him, Lyra moved like light itself. Together, they reached the Zurel central ship. Daniel planted a Solus core in its heart and triggered the overload. The blast ripped through the darkness like a scream. And the war ended. But Daniel was lost in the blast. His ship was last seen diving into the enemy vessel seconds before it exploded. No body was found. No signal. Only silence. Lyra searched for weeks. Through wreckage, across moons, in secret zones and hidden systems. She refused to believe he was gone. He had come for her once. She would do the same. Years passed. The galaxy healed. Elira was rebuilt. Peace returned. Statues were raised. Songs were sung. But Lyra never stopped searching. Every year, on the same day, she returned to Earth, to the cabin where it all began. She'd sit by the shed, close her eyes, and whisper, "I'm still looking." Then one night, many years later, a child walked into her room. A boy. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a familiar look on his face. "Who are you?" she asked gently. He tilted his head. "My name is Solon." She gasped. The boy held out his hand. In his palm, a crystal glowed. Not red, not blue, but gold. The color of memory, of a human who crossed the stars and never really left. Lyra fell to her knees, tears flowing. The boy looked at her. "I found this in the forest," he said. "It whispered your name." She held the crystal close to her heart and smiled. "You came back. Because legends don't die. They become stars. And when stars fall, they rise again."